we live?
Yes, we're live.
Cool.
So, talk.
Wow!
Can people hear us?
Yeah, I mean, totally exciting. For the first time ever, DarkOrbit live on Twitch.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
I think they can hear you.
Awesome.
Yay.
And as a special surprise, I just found out when I went upstairs to get some water that the team is projecting this. So everybody's up there and will make fun of us as soon as we're done here.
Cool.
Intros?
Intros. Well, I don't know if you can see me. Hi, I'm Jörg. I'm the community manager.
I'm Sean, I'm the producer.
And my name is Tim, project manager for DarkOrbit.
Yeah, and we came here today to talk a bit about, well, the game, and just to give you guys a bit more of an understanding what's going on behind the scenes, and we just want to listen a bit into what you have to say about the game, answer your questions, and well, develop the game further with your feedback in mind.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that covers it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And over time, I mean, we want to get in the habit of doing these and having people from the team, because we have a big team that's got people from a bunch of different nationalities speaking a bunch of different languages, and it'd be rad to have them come in and hang out and do this, maybe not in as formal as a manner as it's been done in the past, where people can actually just talk to us and see us talking and realize that we're just people making a game. So yeah.
Making a game. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, I always forget that because you guys are always sitting behind me, and I'm just writing text. Tim, you as a project manager, do you know what's up next? See, I just want to include you into the conversation, and not just having you sit there.
I think, yes, I do know.
Okay.
But the question of communicating it to our beloved players and audience and friends of DarkOrbit is definitely something which should be communicated by our beloved community manager or producer.
Well, that's a nice way to completely dodge the question. Tim doesn't know what's coming up next.
Well, actually, there's a question from the chat. So, what did you guys do in these 3 years? First of all, which 3 years? I mean, the game's now in its 10th year.
Yes.
So
I've been here a year, so I can't speak to 2 of those 3 years, but I've been here for 1 year now, almost exactly. What did I do? That's kind of a broad.
3D.
Yeah, we did 3D last year. We had a pretty decent number of events that came out last year. Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly trying to remember all the stuff that we had on the list, but looking at the events alone, and coming into this year, I don't know.
maybe
a more specific question.
Yeah, maybe a more specific question, like, I don't know if I really want to touch that, but yeah. The question is, what are we going to do with the Jackpot Arena? Some people are really stoked about that, and it seems like you really want that. Do you? I mean,
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, so Jackpot Arena, I'll be honest with you, it's something we discussed, but it's when we prioritize it against the other stuff that people are asking about as well, it's not as high a priority. It's something that I also think is dependent on, we need to make sure that we're tackling a number of other issues with regards to cheating and fairness and stuff like that before we fully expose the Jackpot Arena. When I balance something like what's more important, Jackpot Arena, or looking at server populations, right? Like, what are we going to do on that front, which is also a big technical challenge for us.
Yeah.
And the more we dig into it, the more we look at what the other games have done here at Big Point even to deal with that, the more we found like certain things that we maybe didn't want to replicate, or certain challenges that us trying to replicate those approaches would provide. We've come up with a plan now, but I mean, it takes tech resources, and that's something that we have to basically get done, right?
Mm.
So JPA is something that when I first got here I looked at, and it's very high profile. It's something you look at, and when you look at the money that was involved, it's easy to fixate on it.
Yeah.
But even when you look at, and I don't think I'm releasing any secret forbidden information, but like we ran a survey of what players were interested in and what features were most important to them a few months ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 or 3 months ago.
And
I was thinking about along the same lines.
yeah, it's weird, and like because you look at it and that survey, some of the results surprised some people, but I think others of us were looking at the game and how we play it, how people are playing it, and we weren't super shocked by the response. But it was like 80,000 people responded to that survey in 2 days, 3 days?
3 days.
3 days.
2.5 days to 3 days.
It was like 60,000 people
Yeah.
responded within the first 48 hours, right? And so the people that were running the survey for us here in business intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
they were amazed at how many people responded so quickly. It's like, yeah, but we have a huge player base and we have a very engaged player base, so we weren't shocked. And so we get those results in, and we look at then the results. Basically, we have all these cool charts and spreadsheets and stuff like that that show us the data, and it's like we look at the results, and JPA was like bottom of the list with regards to the respondents' level of importance relative to all these other features.
Yeah.
And so what's more important is getting certain things in content-wise more important, basically working on issues with combat or working on issues with combat balance or cheating or any number of things, server population relative to JPA.
Talking server population, that seems to be a very hot topic for you guys out there, right? You are asking about which service are we going to combine somehow, and I guess we haven't yet decided on if we put together GB1 and GB2, US1 and US2,
And that's part of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
It's like we've looked at the politics that exists on servers, right?
Mhm.
And not wanting to disrupt certain, essentially these are places, these are ecosystems with people that have been playing against each other, with each other, fighting for ranking. Like this is essentially a living environment that we don't want to just arbitrarily smash together. Like some people are used to being able to, farm cubies or something like in their area with a certain amount of, interference or resistance. Like to just smash them together
Yeah.
will create some short-term relief in like, oh, I could see other players, but the long-term ramifications of that are something that we don't want to take lightly.
Just think of player rankings.
Yeah.
So you have low populated server, you have super high populated servers, and if you just take all the users from a low populated server, put them on a mid populated server, but the rankings,
If you keep the rankings one for one, right? Like we see that if you bounce around to different servers, those numbers are different, right? Like reconciling that. And so that's why it's not like we're sitting around going, oh yeah, we don't want to deal with this issue. Like this is an issue it's critical to the players, but it's also something for us. We don't want to have a situation where a server gets to a point where the population's so low that it just dies off or whatever, right? We absolutely want to keep as many players as possible. So despite what some people may say in chat or whatever. So when we look at that, it's like, okay, well, what solution allows us to provide folks with what they want, right? Like they want to see other people, they want to compete against other people. They basically want to have an experience similar to when a server first comes up and it feels healthy. How do we do that without screwing with however many years that server's been around,
I mean, we still can decide that if we want to play a cultural game as well, then just combine GB1 with France 1, so maybe revive that old conflict again. But
not sure.
not sure.
We
Okay.
don't want to reenact any like historical battles or anything, server competition selection.
I know that C-Fight combined a couple of servers which gave a little bit of a hiccup because of these cultural differences. So yeah, it's something that we need to be very careful with,
Great learnings from C-Fight here.
Yeah.
So they decided what to do for server merges in general. We look up the results and also the feedback from the community on the CFI community, and we can decide if we want to do it the same way, if we want to do it different. That's a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, we have those internal examples to look at. I think the challenge for us is conveying to people that we have data, much like any other organization that you spend your time online with, whether it be a Facebook or whatever. Like, we're able to see what's actually happening, and so when we look at an example like what CFI's doing or whatever, and trying to make our decisions there, it's not us just arbitrarily making a decision, though it may seem like that on the other side. You know, it's us really looking at the data and trying to figure out what the best approach is.
One thing that I just noticed, there are a couple of questions concerning specific accounts and stuff like password retrieval. If you have things like that, I think here's not the right place. We can definitely look up your accounts online and project that to everyone. But
No,
no? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we don't want to.
I thought that would be fun. No, if you have issues like that, please contact our support team and let them know so they can help you. We could, as I said, do that online, but it wouldn't be very helpful, no?
Except for you, Tommy Williamson.
With the password.
Gosh, there are so many questions. It just
Pick some.
half of them are already filtered, but
And we
what-
have some stuff that we wanted to talk about just in general anyways, with regards to upcoming events.
couple of questions about the surgeon design, the ranking systems. God. So, do you have something that on the top of your mind that you would like to talk about first?
Well, I mean, to casually avoid all of those that you just suggested and move into a different area, kind of talking about, when we talk about JPA, when we talk about server population, basically any of the features, we're really talking about what our roadmap is, you know, for this year, or what's our immediate roadmap, what are we doing this year, right? Because that's how we have to do it. We have a team of, it hovers around almost 30 people, and so, you know, we get new people, old people leave sometimes. Like I said, I've been here a year, and so, like, for us, it's really balancing, like, how do we do everything that we want to do, everything that everyone wants us to do in that amount of time, right, given a finite number of resources. And so we're talking about prioritization, and I think as we do these, maybe it'll help to kind of reveal a little bit some of the logic, and if the logic's wrong, if people are like, that just doesn't make sense, then we'll get that feedback and maybe we'll find something where we weren't thinking. But when we think of stuff like, even when people are like, oh, how do we make the game cheaper? How do we deal with pay to win issues, all that stuff? That factors into our roadmap, right? And it takes a while to get the pieces in place to address these bigger problems.
Yeah.
And so, like,
I mean, the game is almost 10 years old, and
yes.
we have a situation where the communities on the different servers have simply grown and become like families in places. So getting all the future plans that we have to make the game cheaper, to make it fairer, etc., etc. All the stuff that we are being asked. I mean, we want to do that, and
Yeah, I mean, most of what people ask for, it's reasonable stuff.
yeah.
Right? Like, it's rare that they're crazy, outrageous suggestions as a group, right? Like, there are definitely some weird and wild suggestions from individuals, but, like, overall, the general themes make sense. The question really, I think, for most people is, why can't we do it all immediately? And, like, and if not, like, when is the thing that I'm most interested in going to happen, right? Excuse me, Red Bull. And so, like, for us, it's really, okay, so what is this long-term plan? We have to sit down and look at, like, you know, last year, what does this year look like? What does even going into 2017 look like if we're trying to line all these things up? How do we get, you know, if there's specific things we're trying to do, how do we get more people on the team to tackle those things? So like the beginning of this year, we see even what, you know, what's been our focus. It's getting, you guys are smiling. Is something weird going on? Am I being weird?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I
Am I being weird?
I just
Just
want
exciting.
I just want to respond to one question I just saw. No, can't.
Okay.
Please go on.
So the thing that we're trying to do is, all right, the vanity items. They may not seem like it's like, oh, well, why are you focusing on getting?
With vanity, you mean customization?
Yeah, customization. There's like 5 terms that we use internally, inconsistently for it. But yeah, like so customization, right? We started with drones, and that's something that we really introduced last year, but didn't have the full support for the breakout between stats and appearance items, you know, like, but we wanted to get support in for drones, and then we have support coming up for pets, and then we want to clean up how we handle ship designs, ship customizations in a similar manner.
And I must say that the solution the guys came up with just today, how we sort out the ship
Yeah.
customization thing, really sounds great for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just technically a great solution, it's also visibly for the players.
Well, it's one of those things where it's an opportunity to maybe clean up and simplify stuff that has been around for a while. But even that conversation you had today is a product of more conversations we've had recently, which have really been focused on how do we get to this point of having that without changing stuff in a way where it's like, if we make this kind of change, we want it to be better for the players. We don't want to just make a change and then be like, oh, it's kind of crazy and crappy now, but don't worry, in 3 iterations we'll get it to the point where, you know, you'll actually like it. We've got to try really hard to get it smooth on the first try and then go from there. But the reason why we're doing those things, adding the customization in, is because if we can do that, if we can get more designs in terms of essentially skins, like aesthetic, you know, appearance items, then we can put in some stuff that allow people to show their progress, show whether or not they've got some sort of elite status based on something they've done, without always affecting power, right?
So a bit like the 3-colored Goliath for the UBA winners, like the gold, silver,
Right.
bronze.
And right now, I think the way that we've kind of been stuck in doing stuff like that is it's an exchange, right? It's like, okay, if we want to give you this special skin essentially that makes you look cool and stand out from everybody because you won the UBA,
Yep.
you've got to decide, okay, am I going to rock that like design that doesn't necessarily have the stats I want, or, you know, like it's not a fair exchange. So we really want to break out appearance in that regard from power, and then as part of that, at the end of the day, like we have, like I said, close to 30 people up there working. Like we have servers, we have costs, right? And so we are a for-profit product. It's not like we're not subsidized by the German government or something, right? Like, and so in order to generate revenue, like we do sell stuff. We do basically, you know, we make our income from some point. The idea is like the more we can break out power and aesthetics, the more we can focus on selling aesthetics, not selling power, which helps remove some amount of that pay to win, and then allows us to over time also start to affect prices too, right? And looking at, you know, essentially what's the composition of our economy, where are we deriving our income, and ensuring that a lot of the power progression in the game comes from playing the game, not from buying the game, right?
Maybe Tim, as we just said, we have a lot of people working on the game. Some people are asking for bug fixes to certain areas, and maybe you can explain how we organize that within the team. How many, or how some people are working on bug fixes, some working on new features. Maybe is that something that you could explain?
Sure. So we have 2 areas where we receive bugs from. So a bug can be noted by the community via forums, via other ways to contact us. Then the quality assurance and internal area of the team, they will review these bugs, will check, okay, can we actually reproduce this issue in our game? And after that was done, we prioritize this bug. So we see, is it a major bug? Is it breaking function A, B or C in the game? Is the actually bonus damage for feature XYZ or function XYZ completely corrupt and we need to redo it fast because hey, our players need more damage? Or is it a little icon in the left right hand corner of the website what is actually white and not blue? So we prioritize how much impact this bug does have on our gameplay and fun of the players, etc., etc. When the bug is prioritized, then we figure out, okay, what programmer needs to fix or can fix this bug. Is it something a backend developer is required, or is it a front-end developer, etc., etc. And then we check, okay, at what point in time, because the same developer who's fixing the bug is also creating new content for us and for the players. Yeah. So then we need to prior these bugs sometimes over new feature development because it's super critical and we don't want to stop the game and etc. And yeah, that's daily business. Yeah, it's coming up every week. More new bugs, old bugs coming up.
We always have at least one person in QA that's doing nothing but live bug repro.
From the community.
Yeah, from the community. I think one of the things that, and I've noticed this over the years on other games I've worked on as well, is like, I think sometimes it's easy to assume that a bug has been submitted, and so like I'll see maybe a bugs mentioned in forums or bugs discussed in chat or something like that, and it's not the best way to get that bug to us, even though I've seen some of our programmers and other folks like who play on different language servers. I've seen them like see it on their instance specifically and then just go in and then grab it or whatever just because I saw it in chat. But what winds up happening is we wind up not getting good repro steps for a bug that someone's like, oh yeah, but everybody knows about that bug. But yeah, but we're not able to reproduce it. Like we need better repro steps. And so once we get them, like I said, we've got one person that's always dedicated to it. That bug goes into our queue. We sync weekly. I mean, and so when we're looking at what we're syncing weekly or what we're working on over the next week or two, inevitably, you know, if it's something that's critical and it's got a repro step and we know how to fix it.
So essentially, the better the reports are that we get, and the more data we have about the bugs, the easier and faster we can fix it.
Videos, screenshots, step-by-step reproduction of
trace
the bug.
routes.
Sorry?
Trace routes.
Trace routes, if it's something connectivity wise,
yeah,
that helps us super duper.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that seems. I mean, along with making the game better in other areas like fairer in pricing, etc. This is probably one of the things that we have to deal with the most in the last couple of years. Like,
what's that?
The feeling that we aren't fixing bugs fast enough. I mean that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to downplay that. It's, you know, like, but it's also one of those things. Like I think the communication, at least the way I perceived it over the year that I've been here, it seems like there's definitely been some improvements in communication. There's been definite improvements in like how we're handling things and thus able to get some of these bugs taken care of. But it's one of the, I mean, I think about it as someone like, you know, if I go home tonight and like the show I was watching on Netflix isn't on there anymore, I'm like, what's going on with Netflix? Oh my god, fix it, you know, like, and so there's always going to be frustrations as a consumer, and our job is to try to mitigate those as good as possible, while making progress.
One of the things that I always found hard to communicate to the outside when I'm talking to the moderators and the teams out there, is to explain that several of the features and improvements that we make over time actually will get rid of so many other bugs that we have. I mean, we had something in progress for a while now, this equipment and client thing that we now had to put on hold for a little while. But getting the stuff off the website and put stuff into the client, that would solve so many issues that we have with equipment.
Well, yeah, I
because
mean,
we
it's
have to
challenging,
rewrite
right?
the code.
We've got this interesting setup where we're split between 2 tabs in a web browser. I mean, for us, it's we've got the legacy of what the game is in terms of like how it was built and certain issues, like another week, another set problem issue. You know, it's like one of those things where we look at it and we're patching certain things in a sense when we're fixing them, and then we're looking at it and going, okay, but if we could just change this entire system, like the underlying code restructure, this code, then these problems will stop occurring in the future. And so it turns it into a much bigger, it may be a small bug, but when we start like picking out what that bug is, the iceberg underneath can be much bigger. And sometimes when we look at that, it's like, okay, and if we start digging on this thing, it may cause this other stuff to happen or affect other systems or features or whatever.
Yeah.
There are times when we look at, like you said, with equipment and client, we go, okay, so we already have this thing on the roadmap, this plan to basically retool this set of features or feature or whatever. We're gonna have to, let's push that into part of the work that we're doing there. And yeah, some of those things take a while, like EIC is going to take a while, but for a couple of reasons. One, it's a foundational system, like a lot of stuff. I mean, I won't say everything is built on top of it, but so many things then will either need to be redone similarly or are built on top of them. Like, we want to get the assembly system out as soon as possible, and that's built on top of equipment and client. And so what we're having to do is look at, okay, well, is there a way to basically release this before this, because we know this is going to be a much bigger project, and it's not like it's not done. We put it on open beta, but I think it also says something when we put something on open beta a couple times, we get a bunch of feedback, and we're like, yeah, we don't want to release it until we address these concerns. We don't want to release it until we know that the quality is where we want it to be. Okay, well, let's push that for a little bit and try to get the other thing that we think is super important out sooner.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to that equipment and client thing, here's one question. What are we doing when browsers stop supporting Flash? And exactly that. I mean, we're trying to move so many stuff from the client, from the website into the client, so we can just take this client and make it a simple single thing over time.
Yeah, and ideally do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the people that for 9 years have gotten used to like throwing this tab on this monitor and that tab on that monitor and playing in a very specific way, right? Or while addressing the booster issues and other stuff that have come up with regards to these changes. And there's sometimes when we go through, we think through everything that we can think of, and we're like, oh yeah, we got it, this will be great, we're gonna, and all of a sudden it's like, someone asked from the community and say, oh yeah, do you realize that you missed this? And
we're using it differently than you think we do.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, so we should probably go back and address that, right? The Flash thing, trust me, as a company, it's something that has come up, right? Like, we're not sitting around going, whatever, and then, oh crap, no, nothing works. We've got some stopgap solutions that if automatically somehow Flash disappears tomorrow, we're okay. And then long term, we want to actually move forward in a way that you're sort of describing, which is work towards a better client. So we're covered in both cases, but I'll be honest, like, I think the death of Flash is, it will happen one day, I'm sure, but it's one of those things, it's almost like
Yeah, I mean, if they would stop supporting it tomorrow, many people
Yeah,
and many
we're not
companies
the
would
only-
get really pissed off.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think you can say that word.
PO'd.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's
Thank you.
within borders.
We have 6 guys from the German censorship committee sitting up there in a panel right now. We have to consult them every once in a while.
There is no censorship in Germany. Yeah, one question about the honor cap. That has come up recently on
Yeah.
our desk. That's the database change, which will
I don't
require a
have an
little
answer for
downtime.
you right now. That's one of the reasons why hopefully we'll be doing more of these more frequently, because stuff like that comes up, and I'll be honest, it's not something I have a prepared answer for. I know that we're aware of it, and I know that we've passed it over to tech, and it's something that you on the community side and tech are definitely talking about, and so.
It sounds like a simple solution, but it requires some downtime, and we need to just figure out, because it involves 3 different departments and people in the data centers, something like that.
Multiple data centers.
So that's something that we know of, that is on the desk, but it's not as critical. Sorry for the guys who reached the cap.
But it's one of those things that's critical enough that when it came up, it's like, oh yeah, we definitely need to get on that ASAP. So
but compared to a SAPROM exploit, it's on the second row. So we focus on the critical stuff that affects everyone first.
Yeah, and it also depends on the degree of SAPROM exploit.
Alright, interface. Do we want to beautify the interface? Well, what's do we have plans for that? I mean,
that actually it's come up in sort of our discussion about how to go forward with EIC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with us pushing EIC back a little bit, there are other things not only related to it, not only to be rebuilt in a similar manner as EIC and improved, but there's just sort of the interface discussion overall, and not just beautification, but also additions of cool things that maybe we don't have that other games have, and so that's come up in those discussions, and we'll just have to see as the year progresses exactly where we land. But we're hoping, I mean, this year's a big year for us because we're going into our 10th birthday, right? And so the end of the year we want to definitely want some.
We haven't stopped making the game more beautiful. I mean, we moved from 2D to 3D.
You're pointing at Tim. I was like, we brought Tim out. The game is already more beautiful. Yeah.
But he's a drummer.
Yeah, he is. He's a rock star. Yeah. So the 3D thing, and honestly, I feel okay spilling some beans with regards to 3D and survey. We want to mine folks for some more data on that front. So there will probably be another survey coming up soon. The topic may or may not be 3D. That'll be 3D.
And definitely be sure the community voice matters. So if there is a forum thread with 100 millions and gorillions of forum posts asking for
We don't need a
interface needs renewal, that will be noted, that will be added to our prio if it is.
And
so.
Tim, I can assure you, we don't need 100 million gazillion forum posts.
Unique forum post, not the same person posting it one.
I can tell you that every week the teams from the different countries do send in a very good and detailed report.
Yes.
With the top issues, with the top wishes from every community. We compile that, we spread that in the team.
Yeah, we discuss it weekly.
And discuss it.
Yeah.
And so your voices are heard, and seeing all the things coming up in chat here, I will have a great time just going through that after this chat and condense the most important topics out of it. You know?
Yeah, because I mean that gives us stuff to talk about next time. I mean, we want to do this seriously. We want to do it regularly, unless you just don't like it. then we won't do it, I guess. But we'll probably still do it. I'm not gonna lie to you. But then we'll have topics, right? And we'll be able to speak to those things. And no, we're not gonna open test server. That's coming up on that screen.
It's
How
not.
many times has that been asked?
It's test server and classic version. I mean classic version. Which version do you want? The one of 2015, 14, 12, 10? To be honest, I think the game has.
What is classic? What
Yeah.
is classic? What do you mean with classic?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know, but I guess the game has changed over the years so much that the old source code is buried in some databases somewhere.
I mean, you know, I don't know of anybody that's played an MMO for a long amount of time that hasn't seen the calls for like bring back 2002, you know, like, and then like maybe when I worked at another company that made MMOs, you know, we brought back some of those servers and like a bunch of people showed up for 3 weeks and then you know, it was back to business on the regular server. Not to say that, you know, I don't know where I was going with that one other than say, yeah, I mean, we have to define what it is that people really want. Is it like, hey, you know what, the game was a lot cheaper in 2009, make that happen? When you say like, I want the 2009 client back, that's not what, you're not telling us a specific thing, right? You know, and if it's like, I hated it, you know, things were more balanced before there was LF4s or whatever.
Actually, 2010 to 2012 is probably the version they are referring to.
That's the sweet spot?
That's a sweet spot. Was that before LF4?
Maybe.
Oh, we should remove LF4. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's requested, we can think of it.
You'll be in charge of deleting LF4.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll set up a guard outside the building and escort you. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Again, I'm not trying to, you know, diminish or belittle the request. I understand, like, things change, and it's one of those things. That's honestly when people are like, "Hey, we liked it back at X point." That's one of the reasons why sometimes when we're making a change to JPA or like how we're handling servers or whatever, again, we don't want to take this lightly, because then you'll be sitting around in 2018 being like, dude, take it back to 2015 before you smashed, you know.
Exactly. If you ask for a classic server, let us know why. That's maybe also at least next important to the question. Okay, you're interested in classic server? Okay, let us know why. As Sean mentioned.
Just
You're welcome.
don't remove LF4. Tim, sorry. No
I
more
can see it now. Like I can see it. The boss's boss's boss will be getting an email saying, "So I was just watching their first Twitter or their first what is this thing? The Twitch. They were on the Twitch and they said they were going to delete everything. Please help us."
I think that may be some issue in the next couple of days. Just to come back to the server population thing, I see many questions about this scrolling in the chat. We haven't decided how we're going to do this and when we're going to do this. We know that we can do it. It's just we haven't decided which servers we go.
I think
put
that's
together and
that's
stuff.
the part that we have to be careful about how we approach it. We have a plan for what we think will help resolve this problem.
And of course we will.
It is a multi-step plan, and
we will involve, of course. I guess that in certain cases, before we merge servers or however we do that, we will of course ask for feedback and see if people are happy with, as I said, putting the English and the French servers into one pool, or merging the German and the American server into one big chunk.
That's definitely second step. First step is for us to identify, is it technically possible? What effort we need to spend in? How much resources we need to tackle that problem? If we know that, then it comes to the point when we clearly know, okay, we could, solution A or solution B is possible, then we might communicate what the plan is. Because without knowing if we can do it, why should we communicate it? Doesn't make any sense.
And then, of course, there's the the challenge, I'd rather say, with some players having accounts on each instance.
Right.
So that is something that we are looking into, and that is something that is I think, the biggest challenge.
I mean, it's weird. This problem is multifaceted enough that I wouldn't say that's the biggest challenge. There's so many small challenges with this concept.
Yeah.
At least for our game, that it has required us to step back a few times and go, all right, but what problem are we trying to solve? I mean, if everybody is like, you know, Germany 1 really wants to be a part of Germany 2, that's the problem, right? Like, then it's like, oh, okay, so how do we figure out how to smash those together, and then everybody's happy, right? But that's not the problem as we've seen it. The problem is, hey, we're concerned because we feel like the server populations have dwindled. We don't have people that we are able to actively engage in open world PvP with, and when new players come, it's a ghost town, maybe, you know, around the first zones. Like, there are a number of different issues that we look at and go, okay, are there other ways of resolving this, even before we talk about server merging servers, right? And some of it even comes down to like, all right, well, let's look at what we're doing technically. When a new player logs in for the first time, we have certain systems in place that look to see where should that player go, right? Like, are they functioning properly? You know, are we sending all the players to one server, and then we're seeing these other servers maybe lose, you know, kind of decline over time? What is the appropriate threshold if we are assigning? Like, what level do they need to be kept at, right? When we look at server populations, just numerically speaking, it definitely looks a lot different. When we look at like concurrent users throughout the day and evening, we see something different than maybe what's being spoken to. And it's not to say that when someone says, hey man, it's like a ghost town, I remember when they were like 20 on 20 or whatever, you know, 60-person battles, that's not to say that that's not the case. But I also think that the hey, there's absolutely nobody on this server comment is also not necessarily rooted in fact per the data that we're seeing. But yeah, so we are looking at many pieces of this problem. We have a tentative plan that we're basically just going through now and sanity checking and getting it as tight as possible before we talk to everybody about it and kind of get the feedback, and then we'll go from there.
So, question, what's the next feature?
So the next feature that comes out is this month with regards to the earlier conversation, the basically support for pet vanity. So I think while we have had the ability to change drone appearance in the past with designs even, right, before we even made the split, the aesthetic progression of the pet has been pretty static. So now we are adding support for you to have unique pets or unique pet appearances. And then the next big thing that we're looking at is doing something similar with the cleanup on the ship design side. For us, the big feature, honestly, the thing that we discuss the most and really want to get out as quickly as possible, but as structurally sound as possible, is assembly. Assembly is huge and will give us a lot of opportunity to do cool stuff.
I think I have to give Flips a thumbs up because someone was asking if they could have the artwork in the background.
That
Should be possible.
we should be able to like raffle that or something, right? At some point.
Printed or digital?
I think in this case it's digital.
I just upload it. If that's okay.
Yes.
You just uploaded it?
I meant to ask if people liked it.
I guess
I like it.
some do.
I wanted a green screen
Green screen.
so that we could actually just be in space.
You can do that next time if the people like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we can
Or
show
the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
top of the mountain.
I would love to sit on the top of a mountain.
You know, we're talking DarkOrbit.
Yeah, it's
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain.
Top of Space Mountain.
Not Candy Mountain, that's something different.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the next question is. You guys just talk to each other, please.
Ah,
No.
can I have one day off next week?
No.
Okay, so thanks.
What? I'm off next week.
Oh, who did approve that?
You did.
Focus.
Focus. On what? On questions.
Questions.
Questions. Yeah, many questions.
Pick one. that's
Assembly.
like-
Assembly.
Okay.
Just.
I was hoping for why are you so awesome, but assembly will work. No.
No. Sorry. No.
Yeah.
No awesome questions. No
Assembly.
question about
What
my
about-
awesomeness.
Yes. What about assembly?
Assembly. So, I mean, we talked about it being crafting. What exactly do we craft and why?
Well-
why does a game like DarkOrbit need crafting?
The ability to basically collect pieces as you play, like for us, one of the things we're looking at is we have an existing world, and we already have we have it populated, we have things going on, we have events that take place in it when we do different events, you know, each month or whenever, like they typically take place in that environment, right? And we have established galaxy gates, and rather than just focus on, okay, adding new zones, one of the things that we're talking about is, well, how do we put more value in the zones that are already there? How do we put more value in the NPCs that you're already killing in those zones? When we have an event, how do we make it so that there are more opportunities for players of all level ranges or power levels or whatever to collect things by playing, and then be able to, you know, at their own pace or through their own means, create new items or create unique items that maybe you can't get in other ways. So it's, I mean, it's not super different from what most crafting systems do, right? Like, I think that's a goal of a lot of crafting systems, and it's not out of character for a game like ours, right? There's a lot of collection in you know, when you look at the boxes in War and stuff like that. What we want to do is basically be able to seed the world with more content, and when we have new events, like we have a certain number of missions that come up, right? It'd be awesome to be able to not only have those missions, but also have event-specific recipes, you know, or items that you can only get during those events.
You mean if I just collect enough balsamium in some specific area, then I can just get a recipe and craft my own LF4 and ship designs and stuff?
I think anytime you bring LF4 into a conversation, we need to be a little careful, because you may, I don't know if you look at the response to...
Well, they are even asking for LF5s, so I think LF4s are not so touchy.
A little wild. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it will never happen or that it will absolutely happen, right? But it gives us an opportunity to go. Like, one of the things that we have right now is we have you know, certain percentage drop rates in different areas, and it's kind of, you know, you roll and you get it or you don't, right? And in order to keep those items, I'm not saying specifically LF4s, but those items maintain a certain level of rarity, they've got these low drop rates. That doesn't necessarily account for, hey, I've done this 100 times, or hey, I've done this however many times. And with a system like the assembly, we can actually look at some of these things and go, yeah, you may be after X, not necessarily an L4, but you may be after X, and you go in and you didn't get it, but did you basically get the thing that said, okay, but I did go through this galaxy gate, or I did participate in this content, so now you have one of those, right? And then we just have to look at the balance of, all right, 10, 20, 50, 100 of these things, then work to, with this blueprint or whatever, to provide this thing that you're after, right?
So essentially giving just another way to get all the cool stuff that people want.
Yeah, and new cool stuff that doesn't exist yet, right? And again, it goes into the discussion of putting the vanity items in, the skins, the customizations, like having those as some of the things that that you can collect in game of different rarity. But also, like we do know that the game is going to continue to progress with regards to itemization. It's something that design's been very focused on for many months now, starting last year. Like, okay, what's progression look like moving forward? Because I don't know about everybody there, but when I'm playing an MMO, a lot of times I like to kill cool stuff and then take its stuff and then have new cool items that I can show off that allow me to kill new cool stuff, right? I mean, it's
Power progression.
yeah, it's well, and you want something to show for it, you know. You want to look badass, and you want to have something that other people don't have, right?
Yeah.
Like the cool cape with the golden border instead of the pastel red.
The giant shoulder pads, the big flaming swords, the
Rainbow swords.
right, and so we'll put in rainbow swords.
Rainbow lasers.
Rainbows. Yeah, that was one of the questions as well that I read in the suggestions in the weekly reports from time to time, like different colored lasers. Should be pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean it should be, and it's one of those things that we're looking at on our side, even in hiring. Like essentially we're continuing to bring different people on the staff with different specializations, and one thing is just looking at how do we make the pipeline for art easier to be able to support certain things that, I mean, when we came out with 3D last year, when you look at it, and honestly, even in 2D, it's got this, like DarkOrbit has this cool, almost shoot 'em up feel to the way it looks, right? And it's very unique to our game. I wouldn't say it's absolutely unique, but it's different than being in the full 3D like environment. And it'd be nice to leverage that, right? Like, and for me, I know, we talk about a lot. It's like effects and the way things look. There's so many badass examples in like old shoot 'em ups, even when you go through and you see some of the stuff that they're doing there. It'd be nice to be able to get more of that in. But it's on the list for now, I guess.
Here's one question. What do we think about increasing rewards when people are farming in a group? Maybe that would increase the, this would create a better in-game society.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of stuff on the group side for us to tackle, period, right? And so we've definitely discussed it. The challenge with that is prioritizing the non-group stuff and getting certain features and pieces in before we can tackle the actual group stuff and improving it. So
it's like a big set of Lego where you have to where you have to create one bit after the other so that it gives a new set of things to play with.
Yeah, exactly. And if you forgot some framework here and there in the past, you need to rebuild the framework first before you can build up new cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's also for a product what is 9 years old. Just think of other games who are with us around. I don't know too much games which are so popular for 9 years. Some, yes, sure.
It's a never-ending like pile of work, right? Like, and I say that in a loving, wonderful, positive way. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's it's job security, right? Like there's always something to do, and it's one of those situations where like there are so many things to do that I'm sure there are a lot of questions that will come up on these things where it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And they're all awesome. Like they're all things that's like, yeah, no, I wish we could tackle that right now. The reality is finite number of people and an infinite amount of stuff to add or improve or make cooler or fix or whatever.
Even the 10-year anniversary package you say here, but yeah, we have planned something for the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we're leading up to that.
And sometimes like we have plans to get a thing out at a certain time, right? Like we really want to be able to get assembly out in this period, or we really wanted to do X, Y, or Z. And the fact that we do have something pop up, or we do have a live issue that it's like, oh, this 9-year-old piece of code just decided that it's not going to play nice with the game, or oh wow, you're right, that is a pretty bad exploit, or something like that. Those things, they get put in there, and it pushes the rest of the schedule out. And honestly, like, you know, we work I think at a sane but aggressive pace, and you know, try to do as much as possible, and appreciate the patience.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I know it's coming up here a lot, JPA. I would recommend that you guys just watch the recorded version, because we discussed this very early on, so we're not going there again.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that is on the list. Yeah, as so many others.
It's on the list, but I'm just being very honest when I say where its prioritization is relative to other stuff, and that's not just us sitting around going, well, what do we want? It's more like, all right, well, looking at everything that has been described as a priority by the community, looking at when we did the survey and got all that feedback in.
PvE.
Yeah, getting a lot of this other stuff hammered out is more critical. JPA is definitely high profile. It's definitely cool. It's a relatively unique thing, I think, to DarkOrbit, at least when I got here. And so it's something we want to do and we want to do right. But you know,
let's tackle the other things first.
Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly fair, we saw the past JPAs, even in the last year, there are a number of just issues that would pop up, or fairness concerns, or handling of them that wasn't where it should be for something of its nature. So,
which we can then tie into another question that already went through this whole chat. Some of the fairness issues were actually account sharing, and our stance on that is no account sharing allowed.
Yeah, and that's always a tricky one with regards to being realistic in your level of aggressiveness and seeking that out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've played in high-end guilds my entire career as a developer and, you know, gamer, like, from the time I played my first MMO, you know, 99 or whenever it was, right? I understand there are certain realities to it, but then when we have something like the JPA that is super high profile, and it's like, hey, I'm putting myself out there, you know, like, yeah, well, and if you're sharing an account, then expect us to deal with it. The problem is, then we deal with it, then we deal with certain exploits that have come up, or we deal with whatever, and we're disqualifying both winners, and it was just a mess.
Yeah.
And so I hope that people realize that our motivation in stopping it is actually trying to think, is it benign? Is that the word?
Benign.
My English is starting to fail me the longer I stay over here. So we're basically just trying to.
So we just stopped it because we didn't want cheaters to win it.
We didn't want cheaters to win it, and it's not fair to basically everybody that's paying attention to it. The percentage of the population that actually participated in the JPA is tiny, and that corresponds with the survey responses that we got as well. It's a very high profile thing that ultimately is really being dealt with typically by a very small percentage of the players, many of which were professional in some very interesting ways, right? When you put that level of money out there, you're going to pull some people out of the woodwork that aren't trying to prove that they're the best DarkOrbit player, they're basically, what can I do to get this money every month?
Yeah. So with that said, we're coming to an end now, but
Really?
yeah,
Really?
it just went quicker than we thought.
All right.
Yeah, but we have to go back to our department and work on the game.
Yes.
But the good news is we're coming back.
Yeah.
We haven't just decided if we do it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, but after this first, I mean, very interesting and successful session for us, we're coming back very soon
Yes.
with great topics and
And we want to try to get more people in. We want to get more of the team in, different
Yes.
people in. We'll let people talk more. I will not always be talking over everybody. I was just
not,
Tim.
no.
Tim said he didn't want to talk very much.
yeah.
So I was just.
And yet he spoke.
A bit.
Yeah. Even I was saying like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in front of a camera.
Oh, you did good.
Am I in front of the camera or am I just half in?
Oh,
Nearly.
there, Joe, you're good. You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
good. So I have been in front of the camera without anyone tying me to this sofa. Can I have the scissors?
No.
But yeah, we'll continue to get people's feedback on the format
Yes.
and try to do a little bit more with regards to even multiple languages. We've got people from all over the place on the team that speak different languages. Maybe take some questions in Russian and Spanish and other stuff. German, maybe even German.
Your German is quite good.
Oh, danke.
Yeah, bitte.
Hey, there we go. Got it covered. And yeah, and we'll go from there. But the main goal is to try to have the kind of dialogue we've had with the comments more than anything. So
Tim, just one more personal question.
Oh,
You got a date or something because you're looking at your phone a lot.
ooh.
I'm just checking Facebook, what the comments under the Twitch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we may actually read some of your fun Facebook comments, and Tim will maybe even respond to some of them.
Yeah.
The L4 questions.
Is that where that came from? No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for your time, and we'll be back.
Is that-
Philip,
We
kill
done?
it.
Yeah, that's it.
Ciao.
We're killing it. Goodbye, people.